There is a shed in Coventry. That detail matters, so hold on to it. Sandra is 53 years old. She spent 22 years as a care worker in the East Midlands, clocking early shifts, taking the bus in the dark, saving a little when she could. She did everything right, and then her landlord sold the house, and the rent on a new place came back at £1,300 a month. Her take-home did not come back at £1,300 a month. So Sandra is now sleeping in a converted garden shed at the back of her sister's house. She has been there for 14 months. She told a housing worker, "I never thought this would be me." You already know it. Something has broken in Britain. Not slowly, not quietly, loudly, right in front of everyone. And nobody is talking about it in a way that actually names what is happening to ordinary people. So, let us name it. The average private rent in England hit £1,390 a month earlier this year, according to the Office for National Statistics. That is up nearly 8% on the year before. Think about what 8% means in real life. If you were already struggling to cover rent, 8% is not a mild inconvenience. 8% is the difference between staying and leaving. 8% is the difference between a flat and a shed. And that average hides everything. In parts of London, you are looking at £2,000 a month for a small flat. Rents in the Northeast are lower on paper, but they have been rising faster there than almost anywhere else in England in the past year. There is no region of this country where rents are falling, not one. The Office for National Statistics has confirmed that supply in the rental market sits roughly 20 to 25% below where it was before the pandemic, and that structural shortage is what keeps pushing prices in one direction. This is not happening in some distant place. It is happening across Britain right now. So when the money runs out, where do people go? The visible answer is rough sleeping. The less visible answer is what researchers call hidden homelessness. Sofa surfing, cars, vans, and increasingly, sheds and garages. Research by Streets of London estimated around 167,000 people in London alone were experiencing this kind of hidden homelessness. 167,000 in one city. And that figure, by most accounts, is an undercount, because hidden homelessness, by its nature, stays hidden. Across Britain, the scale of what is not being counted is the thing that should make you stop. Here is what most people do not realize. The crisis you can see, the tents under motorway bridges and the rough sleepers in town centers, is the smallest part of the picture. Behind it sits a far larger group of people who still have a roof over their heads, but barely. Garden structures that were never designed to keep someone warm in a British winter. Storage units, garage conversions with no insulation, no running water, no planning permission. These are not edge cases. They are spreading faster than anyone expected, and the people living in them are mostly people you know. People who worked for decades, people who paid their council tax, people who were, until very recently, renting a normal flat. A like helps more people find it, takes 1 second. Now here is the number that puts the shed problem into context. There are 1.34 million households on local authority housing waiting lists in England right now, the highest figure since 2014, according to government statistics. 1.34 million households queuing for a council home or housing association property. In 32 local authorities across England, the estimated waiting time now exceeds 18 years. 18 years. A child born today to a family on that list would be leaving secondary school before their name came close to the top. In some parts of London, the official wait for a 3-bedroom home is over 100 years. Westminster, Enfield, Merton. Those are not estimates from a housing campaigner. Those figures come from analysis of the council's own data. No one on that list is going to get that home. They know it. The council knows it. The system just keeps registering them because there is nothing else to offer. Drop your town in the comments. Tell us what rents are doing where you are. And here is the part that takes the breath away. While all of this has been building, Britain has been losing social homes faster than it has been building them. In the last recorded year, roughly 20,000 social rent homes were lost, primarily through right-to-buy sales and demolitions, while fewer than 20,000 new ones were delivered. A net loss. Going backwards? The total number of council homes in London alone fell from around 715,000 in 1980 to around 390,000 in 2024. That is a drop of roughly 45% over 40 years. And in that same city, the housing waiting list now stands at over 340,000 households. The arithmetic is not complicated. You sold the homes. You did not replace them. To be fair, this is not the only cause. Housing demand has also been shaped by household formation patterns, by more people living alone, by longer lives. A candid reading of the data shows the problem is not purely one of supply. England actually built slightly more homes relative to population growth over the last 25 years. The issue is distribution and cost, not raw numbers alone. The homes that exist are simply in the wrong places and priced far beyond what working people can pay. That is an honest acknowledgement, and it matters, because solutions that only talk about building ignore the harder conversation about who can actually afford what gets built. But the harder truth underneath all of that is, what has happened to the floor? The social housing floor that once caught people who fell, council homes that generations of working families relied on. When that floor was pulled away and never properly rebuilt, there was no substitute. The private market does not serve people on low wages or universal credit. It just does not. Around 1 in 2 families who rent privately and claim housing benefit find that the local housing allowance no longer covers the bottom third of market rents in their area, according to Shelter. The allowance that is meant to protect the most vulnerable covers fewer than 3% of advertised rentals in England. 3%. So when someone like Sandra runs out of options, the journey does not end with a flat in a new development. It ends with a sleeping bag in a garden shed in Coventry, telling herself it is temporary, hoping the sister's neighbors do not complain, and wondering whether this is really Britain in 2025. 131,000 households across England are currently in temporary accommodation. That number is up roughly 16% in a year, according to government figures. That includes around 169,000 children. Children doing homework in bed and breakfast rooms, sharing beds, being moved from borough to borough when councils run out of local space, and the councils housing them are being financially destroyed in the process. Councils across England spent around £2.8 billion on temporary accommodation in the last financial year alone, up roughly 25% on the year before. London boroughs alone were spending around £5.5 million every single day. Money that is not building anything. Money that is just plugging a gap that should never have opened. You might be watching this and thinking, but someone must be doing something. And to be fair to the current moment, there are genuine moves being made. Right-to-buy reforms have been announced that should slow the rate of social homes being sold off. A significant affordable homes program has been committed to. The Renters' Rights Act has come into force. These are real steps, and they deserve to be acknowledged honestly. But the waiting list in England is still at its highest point in over a decade. Councils are still spending money they do not have on accommodation that is not fit for purpose. And the gap between what gets built and what needs to be built, the Office for National Statistics and Housing Researchers suggest England needs somewhere in the range of 300,000 new homes a year, while currently delivering far fewer means the queue will keep growing. At current trajectories, some analysts suggest the waiting list could reach close to 2 million households by the mid-2030s. Which brings us back to Sandra and the shed in Coventry. She is not an outlier. She is a data point that the official statistics have not yet caught up with. Because hidden homelessness, by its nature, does not show up in the count until it is too late. By the time it makes the numbers, the problem is already bigger than the numbers show. And it is spreading across towns and cities that do not think of themselves as places where this happens. Commuter towns, market towns, seaside towns, places where people have lived for 30 years and now quietly cannot afford to stay. Something is changing across Britain, and most people cannot quite name it, but you can feel it. Every time you hear what someone is paying for rent now, every time a grandchild tells you they cannot get a flat, every time you pass a high street with the shutters down and the people who used to live nearby have moved somewhere else, somewhere cheaper, somewhere further away, this is what it looks like when the floor disappears. So here's the question, and it is a direct one. Where are you watching this from tonight? And does what you have just heard match what you are seeing in your own town, your own street, your own family? Because that gap between what the official story says and what you are actually living is exactly where this conversation needs to happen.